I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Missy Cummings. And it would be hard to predict this, but you know that your topic has come to the forefront when it shows up on CSI on TV. And last night, CSI, and there's so many of them, I'm not sure which one, but something to do with cyber and cybersecurity, had autonomous vehicles as the topic in their show last night. Now, I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I recorded it, so I thought that might be required viewing for me in today's world. So we know that we've arrived with autonomous vehicles, but there's a lot yet to know and to think about and to resolve to make this a technology that is available to everyone and available for safe implementation in the future. And that's what Missy is going to talk to us about today. So let me give you a little bit about her background. She's an associate professor in the Duke University Pratt School of Engineering and the Duke Institute of Brain Sciences. She is also the director of the Humans and Autonomy Laboratory. She received her BS in mathematics from the U.S. Naval Academy, her MS in space systems engineering from the Naval Postgraduate School, and her PhD in systems engineering from the University of Virginia. A naval officer and military pilot from 1988 to 1999, Cummings was one of the Navy's first female fighter pilots, and I think that's the first time I've had the pleasure of saying that, so that's really exciting. Her presentation today is titled Man versus Machine, or Man plus Machine, and she's going to help us take a look at the future. Let's welcome her.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Are we good? Can you guys hear me? I get so tired of my introduction. Like, oh God, I sound so old. It's true. I'm like the picture of Dorian Gray. Oops, and let me explain to you just how true that is. So you hear that I was one of the first female fighter pilots, and it's for the Navy, but it was for the United States as a whole. And that's a whole nother talk. And I could entertain you. I'm fun to take to the bar and buy a drink because I entertain you stories forever. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of just one story today, and that is how I knew I needed to find another job. So I am so old that I flew an A4 first, which is a real plane, meaning there's no computers inside the plane, and then I made the leap to the F-18 you see here. And, it's like going from an MG to a Ferrari, but the difference is there are a lot more systems to manage, and I really wasn't the pilot that I was in an A4, meaning that the computer got to do most everything, and I was just managing the system. And where that was really apparent was on the aircraft carrier. Because when you go to the aircraft carrier, the plane always does a better job at landing than you do. Click a few buttons, kind of keep your hands on the control just in case anything happens, but the computer always takes the plane down to a landing much better, much more stable, much less variation than a human can. But still kind of important because, something could go wrong, and occasionally it does go wrong, and you need to step in. So, that was uncomfortable, but, there was still a reason I was in the plane, theoretically, on the landing. And then you go over to the catapult, and then that's what really makes you question your existence on the planet. Because you go over to the catapult and you turn to the left and you show everyone, I'm not touching anything. And then you turn to the right and you show everybody else, look, not touching anything, seriously not touching anything. And then you put your hands on these two handlebars. And only when they're sure that you're not touching anything do they actually launch you off the catapult. And you're like, seriously? I'm like a 5-year-old, I can't touch anything. And if you touch anything, there have been several deaths in the F-18 where a pilot would over-control the plane, and you're on such a thin margin because you're right at the stall envelope when you take off on a catapult that a pilot would over-control it and cause it to crash. I've had several friends die that way. So we're not allowed to touch anything. All right, but why am I here? Because you didn't really need me on the landing. Now I'm not even allowed to touch anything on the takeoff. And then with all the automated weapons that are coming online, we can fire a missile that this plane could carry over 1,000 miles from its intended target from a submarine. Why am I here? And that started to raise my awareness that automation was starting to become a serious player that was threatening my world. And then and I had been brainwashed my entire career to believe that I was the best of the best, right? I mean, most everybody here has seen Top Gun, or if you haven't, go out and see it. But I'm not, I'm the best of the best, but I'm not better than a computer. So what does that make me? And that inspired me to go to school. I got my PhD, and then I started the Humans and Autonomy Laboratory. The original version was in Boston at MIT, so I was there for 10 years. And then I was bought out by Duke. I was acquired. And there is a joke, an implicit joke in the name. You have to be over 40 to get it. So if you do not get it, you have to go find someone over 40 and ask them to tell you what the joke means. I'm not telling you. You need to appreciate your elders. Okay, so now I'm here to talk to you about man plus machine or man versus machine. But this is a debate that's been going on for a long, long time. So this is a cartoon from NASA. Originally, it's called the Apollo MIT Instrumentation Laboratory, which is a spin-off. The Draper Labs eventually spin out. But this is part of the NASA We're Going to the Moon research. And this is in 1964. So the question was, should we have the astronauts sit around doing nothing and just having an abort button? It's funny, you can't see it. This guy was originally smoking, but they in the Mad Men world, they we got to get rid of that. Okay, and then, or should we have them running around working and doing stuff with the computers? And what's interesting is, this is a really old graphic, 50 years old, but we still do not have this answered. NASA still struggles with the problem, and we still struggle with many other transportation industries. In fact, this is a current cartoon, and now we're on the other side of the pendulum. This is how roboticists see the world. Any CS, computer science people, or roboticists, call yourself roboticists in the room? Raise your hand. I'm not going to pick on you too much. Oh, come on. Now, somebody here, I know at least one person in here has a background in robotics, but this is really how they see the world. I would like to be able to make the machines do everything, and the humans should just be there in case of a problem. But that's not realistic either, right? So the question is, how do we know that? How do we know who's going to be where? So that's where I come in, and my research has actually a formal name. It's called Human Supervisory Control. It's where you've got this human here trying to control a remote vehicle, but there's not really any direct control. There's a computer mediating this in the middle, and all the operator has are some controls and some displays, but they have to envision what's actually happening out here, actually being controlled by a computer. So where do we see this in the world? Well, this is a robotic dump truck. This is a project that I was working on. Look at my student. See how tiny he is? This is a big truck. These trucks are so well behaved that they cover the same path over and over again so precisely that they actually will cut deep ruts into the ground. They have to program them with uncertainty now to behave more like cars so that the manned vehicles that are around and doing quality control can get in there and operate alongside them. Process control, you'll find that the task does not actually have to be a vehicle at the end. There is some automated process somewhere that's being controlled, and so you will see me a lot in process control industries. Of course, the big one now is drones. This is process control plus drones. It's the Alaska oil pipeline. In this case, drones are a huge boon to this industry because the pipeline is so remote, it's very costly and often very dangerous to inspect this. So it puts people at risk. So being able to go in and send these drones in is critical both for the safety and the efficiency. And one of the things that I find, so my whole research area is looking at human behavior in the presence of technology. In this work, I actually found out that, do you know why they have to do so much inspection of the oil pipelines? They have to find out where everybody is shooting them because they actually have a problem with bullet holes in various parts of the pipeline. This also happens to the energy industry who have big transformer stations in the middle of nowhere. People, not people in this room, but there are people in the world who just shoot it. Why? Because it's there, right? Now, this is kind of an important thing to realize. By the way, I come from North Carolina. We all own guns in North Carolina. I felt really home here in Minneapolis where I saw several signs on doors that says, do not bring your gun into this establishment. Like, that is just like North Carolina. I feel really good here. That's right. People just shoot things because they are. And then what's funny about that is that's actually a problem for drones, too. This is actually something that Amazon has not yet quite got its arms around, and Walmart and Google. You can do drone delivery all you want, but I come from Tennessee. My family is the first one that's going to let that drone bring them a six-pack of beer and then shoot it as soon as it leaves. So the anti-drone shooting business, that's a business you should start. But of course, we talk about this a lot. Drones are small drones, but in fact, the technology that makes them so popular is the same technology that's on any commercial aircraft that you fly. Any commercial aircraft you fly could easily be converted into a drone with just a kit in a weekend, right? So it's bits and bytes that are controlling these planes. It's bits and bytes that are controlling these planes. And really, it doesn't matter whether you're on the plane or remotely controlling the plane. That's how the plane is controlled. Now, there's some issues with security, data security, and we can talk about that later. But this automation is coming. It's coming everywhere, and we're going to talk a lot about driverless cars, which are a technology that is in your everyday life, right? But the question then is, if we've got all this automation, how should we design these systems to balance the human and automation interaction? Here is my trade secret. Shh, don't let this out. Not kidding. I published a paper on it, not surprisingly, as an academic. But this is my secret sauce in how I know how close you are to having your job automated and handed over to a robot, or how soon you're going to get that robotic car. It's something called the SRKE taxonomy, which represents skills, rules, knowledge, and expertise. And I've basically built this on an earlier Dutch researcher's insight that he said there's three kinds of behaviors that people express: skill-based reasoning, rule-based reasoning, and knowledge-based reasoning. And then I came in and said, well, we do one more beyond that, expert-based reasoning, and I'll explain the difference in just a second. So, cockpit. Skill-based reasoning is you learning a set of skills, hand-eye coordination, that allow you to, in this case, control this vehicle without a lot of thinking. When I went to pilot flight school, it took me 2 years in flight school. Why does it take a pilot 2 years in flight training? Because you are learning a set of skills that become highly automatic. I really probably could jump into any cockpit of any aircraft now, even though I haven't flown a jet aircraft, a military aircraft in 15 years. Yeah, I could probably jump in and get it going and move it and not crash and not be that unsafe flying the aircraft along. That's because you spend so much time learning to control airspeed, altitude, heading, attitude, that it becomes second nature. That is, in fact, when you drive. It doesn't take you very long to learn to track between the two white lines, but it takes you about 2 hours of intense focus. Okay, I got to track between the two white lines. And then once you do it, you can do it for the rest of your life until your sensors start to degrade when you get a little bit older and you have some vision problems, right? So skill-based reasoning happens because of the automaticity and the rehearsal of skill training. Once you've got how to fly the aircraft, how to keep it level flight, then you move up to rule-based reasoning. And in the case of aviation, this is applying procedures. Okay, I have a problem, there's a set of procedures that I need to execute. It's a set of rules, it's an if-then-else algorithm that takes me through how to deal with an anomaly. Or in this case, in the case of driving a car, I see that ball, well, actually, no, I'll use that example in a second. So I see a stop sign, and I know that I've got to start slowing down and fully stop the car, look all the different ways, and then I go ahead. These are rules that you have learned, but you can't actually execute those rules until you've got the skills to do it underneath it. Once you get to rule-based reasoning, then you jump up to knowledge-based reasoning. And this is when you start to understand that there's not an if-then algorithm that applies in every situation, that sometimes you need to have more abstract thought. This is the ball rolling out in the street. When a ball rolls out into the street, you see the ball, but that's all you see. But you do a mental simulation inside your head. There is a ball that is rolling out into the street. There is likely a child attached to this ball somewhere. So I'm going to widen my scan. I'm going to start looking around. And even if I can't see, and maybe there's bushes around, I'm going to really slow down here because I think that there could be a problem. This is all an abstract formulation of something else that's happening in the world that you cannot see. And this is where you're starting to what we do call reason under uncertainty. There is uncertainty. There is something else out there that's driving a situation. You do not know it, you cannot see it, but you are guessing about what is happening. And that guessing is what is critical, because this is where we start to see uncertainty start to rise. Last but not least, expertise, and I have that here in the Miracle of the Hudson, is you can have a person who's really knowledgeable in the world and can do these mental simulations, but the true expert is one that had to actually operate under the greatest set of uncertainty. So there are a lot of pilots, and this Chesley Sullenberger, I think he had somewhere like 13,000 flight hours. He is more of an expert than his co-pilot, who might have the same hours, because Chesley Sullenberger had to land with no engines, right? And he had to figure it out. So he's the expert. I think I also like to add an expert because it makes me feel better for being older, right? Because you can only be an expert, by the way, time in. You know, it's true that maybe you're young and you have some experiences that happen, but it's actually your time in doing a job, your exposure to all the various degrees of uncertainty. That's what makes you an expert, right? And so I think why that's important when we talk about automation is really good here. If we have the right sensors, which is 10 to the minus 6, and if you're an aerospace engineer, 10 to the minus 9, I don't want to get into the argument about the minuses. You've got a high degree of reliability about what your sensors are telling you. If we have good sensors and we have a good feedback control loop, we can automate that. In fact, that is why automation is so much better at flying a plane. No question. Automation is way better at flying planes, landing planes, taking off planes. Not only are they safer, they save tremendous amounts of fuel. This is why airline pilots only touch the stick in an Airbus 3.5 minutes out of any flight. So you could be on a 12-hour flight, and that pilot is only touching the stick for 3.5 minutes. And they don't even have to do that. Why has Airbus and the airlines, why have they come down on the pilots to get them off the stick? Because it saves millions of dollars in gas. Because the automation controls the plane so closely, so fine-tuned, that you can actually see tremendous fuel savings. They also save on the tires. When you let the plane land itself, the plane lands itself more gently and saves the tires, which over the long haul saves the airlines lots and lots of money. So, automation can do this. If we can sense it, we can automate it in a skill-based world. Rule-based reasoning. Well, I already told you it's an if-then-else algorithm. Pretty much, if you can express an if-then-else algorithm, you can probably automate that, especially if you have the sensors. So in this particular world of aviation, this is where automated the GPS, navigation, wayfinding, if the plane can figure out the right path to take, then it can take that path. And if you don't need the pilot in to help pick out the path, then you're moving the pilot up the scale, certainly. And we'll talk about this in cars. So cars, we've all got GPS in your cars. In fact, I'm really concerned about, you're also married to your Google Maps or your iPhone apps, that if I actually were to drop you off in any city without your Google phone, I mean, who among us would be like, where am I? We have lost some basic skills, I think, because we're so used to having the rules done for us. So automation does pretty good down here, but it's really right about here, right between the rules and knowledge, that automation starts to fall apart. And that's because automation cannot do abstract inductive reasoning. And this idea, this mental stimulation of like what's about to happen in the world, you might want to argue with me that maybe there's some Bayesian reasoning that can go on underneath the hood, but I'm here to tell you in a practical situation that computers are nowhere near able to, in real-world situations, project knowledge, much less expertise. Please do not tell me that Watson is an expert-based system. Watson is not an expert-based system. Watson is a rule-based reasoning system. Watson is a whole series of if-then-else. It's massive. The computer program behind Watson is massive, and it's just a very complicated rule set engine. Watson has no knowledge. Watson cannot operate under uncertainty. And by the way, this is why chess went over to computers ages ago, because there's no uncertainty in chess. If you can think of all the moves, you can automate that, right? So if your jobs are skill-based jobs with good sensors, you're in trouble. If they're rule-based, you're also in trouble. And I'll tell you who's in trouble recently: sports writers. So there are algorithms right now that can do automated generation of sports articles, but not politics, right? Anybody know why? Because sports, they've actually been able to distill a very actually small vocabulary that apply to sports games. They're the scores, they're the wins, they're the losses. There are certain verbs and adjectives that you always see in sports stories. But in fact, most of the sports stories that you are reading in papers across the nation are automated. There is not a human writing these sports stories. Now, you can't say this about political upheaval or about events in your day-to-day life, because that requires way more context than lots more knowledge and expertise. But if it's rule-based, you're in trouble. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. So here's a bunch of technologies. And now I'm going to introduce the idea of, okay, so there's automation and then there's autonomy. And that tends to throw people for a loop. What's the difference? I mean, I'll see the two words used in similar capacities, but they're not the same. So in the mining world, for example, this is an automated drill. This drill has been automated because it is really both a set of skills that a human would have to, how I need to drive the drill down 1 foot, 2 feet, whatever, and I get some sensor readbacks about the density of the rock or whatever the directions I've been given that I have got to drill so far, so deep. Turns out that we've got the sensors that can make this highly automated and much more precise if we let a machine do it than if we let a human do the drilling. So drilling in the mining industry it's not completely gone over to automation, but within the short term, this will be, I think, across the industry an automated path. Rio Tinto in Australia introduced the first fully automated rail line in freight rail. They can do that because there are some skills in driving the train that can be highly automated, because the tracks, that really helps lower the uncertainty. We know where that thing is all the time, right? It can't veer off this track, at least not on purpose. And the set of rules in terms of when it comes to crossings, when it needs to speed down and speed up and slow down, it is very rule-based. They are able to do this too because the uncertainty is really low in this case, because they own all the land that these trains drive on. There's no crossings. There's no ability for a human to meander out into a crossing. And of course, that's why we have problems in populated areas, because we've got, of course, none of us can imagine in this room, why on God's green earth are you trying to go around the gates, right? We see this all the time, that the gates drop and there's always someone. I work with the Federal Railroad Administration, so I see these accident reports. What are you thinking trying to snake through a road crossing? We can't imagine it in this room, but there's lots of people, thousands of people across the country that do this every day. So it's a behavior we have to account for, and if we don't have a train that could sense that, then we can't automate that, which is why you don't see more high-speed automated rail in this country. And then the trucks that I told you about before, they actually operate on rules too. A little bit of knowledge. Now they've started to embed these vehicles with the understanding of when a human's present. So they basically have sensors, GPS sensors, some other sensors that let them know when humans are operating in and around them. So we've got just a tiny bit of knowledge that the trucks actually will exhibit a little bit of a different behavior if they detect humans are in their presence. Okay? But it's really tiny bit of knowledge, mostly rule-based reasoning that's happening on these vehicles. What would true knowledge and expertise look like in an automated vehicle? It would look like that. It would look like the Google car. The Google car, or any driverless car, and most auto manufacturers now have at least a research program in place. They have to be able to express knowledge and expertise for those same reasons that I just told you. The ball scenario, cars cannot do that now. Now maybe we could codify that exactly, that if you knew that was a ball, to slow the car down or maybe stop the car, see all the sensors, but it's still an area of high uncertainty. And one of the problems that the Google car does have today is its problem with obscured obstacles. And by that I mean, there is the cars coming up to an intersection, there is a biker that is behind a truck that's parked in a city landscape, and then the biker darts out in traffic. I'm sure that happens every day here in Minneapolis. This is a college town. Bikers, pedestrians darting into traffic when you least expect it. that is a big problem for all driverless cars. First of all, the sensor's got to be able to sense that they're there. And if they're coming out from behind an opaque object, they never even knew that they were there. They never even knew to look at them. And let's say maybe you could have them pick it up probably faster than the human eye, but of course that's assuming that the weather is good. Turns out LiDAR sensors, which is sitting right here, they don't work when it's raining or snowing. Do we have any driverless cars running around Minneapolis in the wintertime? There's a reason for that, right? It's so bad that it just has to do a fine mist. You can actually destroy a LiDAR radar picture if there's a fine mist in the air, which it's not, you as a driver, you probably wouldn't even turn on your windshield wipers. But for a sensor like this, it really degrades the sensor to a level of unacceptability in a lot of cases. And so a lot of things have to change for these to become practical on everyday roads. First, the sensors have to work under a much larger range of conditions, and we've got to be able to understand what to do in these cases where the sensors cannot pick it up. How do you program the Google car to envision in the abstract? How do we get the Google car to understand, the ball rolling across the road? Yes, I've expressed it so we can think of it, but what happens in a complex multi-car pileup? Ice cars are sliding, and those motions are unpredictable, so which path is the car going to take, right? So it's all about uncertainty. The uncertainty that we do so well in the knowledge and expertise domain is going to be the reason that this is going to be difficult to automate under all conditions. But I was just having a little talk before we came here, but there are some good technologies that are spinning out of it. The crawl functionality, which is when you're going to be in your car, and this is going to come out very soon, the car, you're in traffic, it's only going 5 or 10 miles an hour, you'll be able to hit that button, hands off, go to sleep, text to your heart's desire, the car will crawl and follow the car along until it gets to about 15, 20 miles an hour, and then it's going to signal you to take over, and then you can quit watching Netflix on your iPhone and go back to your job, go back to the job of driving, right? So there are a lot of advancements coming because of this research, but I would not race out and decide that you're going to have that next fully autonomous car anytime soon, because there's still, that capability is not going to be here anytime soon. But of course, if we could do that, that's actually the barrier to getting to this, right? Humanoid robot research, that's like the holy grail. And this is actually a real robot. This is DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Association. This is, anybody know Atlas? Anybody seen this? Yeah, Atlas, it's a friendly robot. It's here to help. I'm not kidding. This robot here is supposed to, the cover story at DARPA is that it's here to help you in the case of a national emergency like a flood or a hurricane or something like that. I got news for you. If I saw this thing coming after me in a disaster situation, I'm sure I'd probably run the other way, as I think most people would. You're like, could they at least paint it pink or something, or like make it a little bit more friendly because it looks a little scary. And it is a DARPA robot, which they say it's for first response, but they are working for the military, right? And so I tell everybody though, don't get worried, because humanoid robot research, if these guys are struggling, I can tell you these guys are really struggling, and we're still in the infancy in humanoid robot research. Number one problem is, anybody see this tail? It is not a wicked tail. What is it? Anybody know? It's the power supply. So the good news is, if you're scared and this robot is chasing you, just run out the cord distance, and you're good. So we're a long way from having humanoid robots in any kind of functional capacity, whether it's a military or even a first response robot. But of course, what's the robot we all want? House cleaning. Rosie the robot. That's what I really want. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about some research that I've been doing to kind of put it into context. So this whole thing is about man versus machine, man plus machine. So one of the things that you'll see in the computer science robotics world is there is this focus on the mutually exclusive nature, but it doesn't have to be that way. One of the things we realize, let me go back real quick, I hate it when people do that, but I forgot, is, just because we can do this and robots can do this pretty well doesn't mean we have to divide the line, that we only do one kind of task and they only do one kind of task. The good news is that if we actually think smartly about it, we can combine our capabilities and make really useful autonomous machines that we're coaching and that we're guiding. In this case, we've taken this is a $600 drone that we bought off the shelf from 3D Robotics. It's an Iris. We've made up a clever camera system, which is no longer hanging out because this was too weight. We've actually embedded it up inside the vehicle. It's a thermal camera that we're taking to Gabon, Africa, which is in equatorial Africa, to look for these guys. I hope it's hard for you to see. I am not a conservationist, at least I used to not be, because I was in the military establishment, and then I was getting tenure at MIT and working on these high-tech robotics programs. The one thing that tenure got me was now the ability to start thinking about the environment, right? So I'm taking all those lessons I learned about the military establishment and applying them in the conservation world, which has been very satisfying. But who knew? There are two kinds of elephants. I only knew that there was one kind of elephant in the savannas, but it turns out they're forested elephants, elephants that love to hide under the tree canopy. Who knew, right? I didn't know. And so they can't find these guys, they being the park rangers, but they need to find these guys because the bad guys are finding them, and there's a big poaching problem. And they also just need to be able to track these elephants in a better way than putting the collars around them, which can actually introduce a lot of infections and problems when they collar these elephants. So one of the things we're doing is we took this system, and of course, conservationists never have any money. I have to tell you something. I can raise money like nobody's business. I can make money rain from trees for autonomous systems if I'm working in the military. If I want to then work in the conservation world, there's no money. It's amazing to me how if you're working in the military establishment, money everywhere. If you're trying to do good and save elephants, no money anywhere. I'm going to pass a hat around later to try to raise money for our elephant conservation project. So we need to keep it cheap. Right? So we're trying to keep this system completely under $1,000. So we've got this, and we've got a little Android-enabled little mini tablet, and we're taking some software, and we're making it so easy to control that we're literally handing an Android-enabled mini tablet to African rangers with no real formal education and allowing them to start looking for these elephants on their own. And so they don't need the skills of flying. They don't even know the rules of flying. We've got all the rules embedded in the tablet. All they need to know is, I need to find these elephants. I think the elephants are hanging out over here. And we use the thermal imagery because they're much, much easier to see at night than they are during the day. And so it really combines the human ability of perception to understand their problem, and they've got the expert knowledge to know where the elephants like to hang out at night, watering holes, whatnot, and then they could just use this technology to get it done. This is kind of a crazy project I'm working on through DARPA. DARPA equals crazy. So we can fly planes without a pilot at all. We've known that. We've had drones for many, many years, since the 1990s. 1990 was basically the birth of military drones. And so for 25 years, we've had very active drone programs. So we know how to fly planes without people. But it turns out that we are actually facing a pilot shortage. Not so much in this country, but worldwide, there's difficulty getting enough people in the cockpit because it takes two. We have to have two people. But wouldn't it be a cost saver, to fill the gap of humans, but also, let's say we wanted to reduce the pilot complement. What if we could take out the right seat pilot and put in a robot, kind of like R2-D2? And that is the nature of this program. It's a big competitive program inside of DARPA. I'm working with a company called Aurora Flight Sciences, and in fact, that's what we're all doing. And you probably would be surprised to know that in this country, this move towards single pilot operations, that is a formal move that has been afoot in this country for about the last 10 years. And so we are using federal dollars to figure out how to go from 2 to 1 inside every cockpit, commercial and military. And I get a lot of pushback of people saying, well, that's not going to happen in this country. You're right, it may not happen in this country, but the CEO of Ryanair, the uber cheap airline in Europe, has said that they're only going to have one. And I suspect that commercially this will happen first in Europe. But Embraer has said they're going to start building planes that only have one seat. every U.S. plane has to be, by law, flown by one. In fact, there was a case recently where the co-pilot, the captain got locked out when he went to the bathroom. He couldn't get back in. The co-pilot was, just sit back, I'll take care of it. And he landed the plane, no problem. So it's actually not a big deal. But what we would like to do is to have an entity in that right seat, particularly in case there's a problem, to help out. So we can't, our robot inside this project for us is not called R2-D2, because I'm sure we get into a trademark problem with Lucasfilms. So we've called ours R2-A2. We're so clever. We're so clever. And what's funny about it is, there's this joke that's been running around aviation for as long as I have been alive, a cognizant aviator, and that is, what is the perfect crew complement for a plane? A pilot and a dog, and the dog is there to bite the hand of the pilot in case he touches anything. And that's it. And what's funny to me is, I heard that as a baby pilot, and in fact, that was early 1990s. So this many years later, it's actually a reality. And by reality, meaning the flight demonstration for this happens in about 3 weeks. And so, are you going to see this in your lifetimes? Sure. Oh, sure. You are. You are definitely going to see a single-piloted commercial aircraft in your lifetime. Now, it's a question about will you see a robot filling the right seat? I don't know. We're having a problem. The one problem that we're having on this project is all of our roboticists were stolen by Uber. And I was telling the people before lunch that this happened. So Uber basically took all the roboticists from NRAC, the National Robotics Center in Carnegie Mellon. And so that left us scrambling to have a roboticist at the last minute. So we're on our, the JV team has now come up to be with us. And so we'll see. But that is a big problem, finding people to do this research. All right, so we talked a lot about driverless cars. So I am a big advocate. You are terrible drivers. Minneapolis, the thing I like about coming to Minneapolis, people are really nice here. They are so nice. I always think this is why people live in such cold weather, because they're so nice to each other, which is unlike Boston, where it's equally as cold, but they're all mean to each other. So I think there is something to be said about the Minneapolis culture. But while the driverless cars are coming, and it will be good to get most of you off the road, there are still some serious problems that we have to consider. Urban driving, actually, it seems counterintuitive, is the easier of the modes to automate as opposed to long-distance driving. And I'm working on the long-distance driving because I've had this long program going inside my lab of boredom. This first came up several years ago, about a decade ago. I was working with drone operators, and drone operators, it is excruciatingly boring for the pilots to be monitoring these drone systems. So we kind of slid into the driverless car domain when that started to get popular. And in fact, we are seeing some problems, right? If I'm driving a driverless car across Texas in the middle of the night, and it's doing a good job, I can tell you that people are going to fall asleep, amongst other things. They're going to be texting. They're going to be watching movies. They will crawl in the back seat of the car. And you know what? That's okay as long as we can guarantee certain reliability and that car can actually master all the knowledge and expert-based judgments in a way that that the safety constraints can be satisfied. But how close are we to that? So we have this simulation, and this research was paid for by Google X. We have this simulation where we get you into a driving simulator, and you drive for 4 hours on a road in lightly misting conditions. And so you know where this is going. So the car's doing a good job of driving itself, and about 2.5 hours, by the way, don't ever volunteer to be an experiment, because it's something bad is going to happen when you're in one of my experiments. 2 moose just amble across the road. Now they don't jump out in the road, they amble across the road, and if you're paying attention, you can get around them. And the premise is that the LiDAR was late in detecting, if it detects it at all, which in these conditions is very realistic. So you don't have to be a research scientist to guess how many people crashed. All but one. Only one person was even remotely tuned in. And they knew that the system itself could be defective. But one of the things that you're seeing here, of course, we've got this funky thing on this guy's head. We're actually trying to look at your brain waves. actually not really waves. We're looking at how much oxygen that you're uptaking in your prefrontal cortex. There's a theory that, and anybody stuck their finger in a pulse oximeter to find out how much oxygen you have? A lot of people have done that. Basically the same technology, functional near-infrared spectroscopy. You put it on your head and we can actually see when your blood flow increases. And what we were trying to do is we're trying to see how your blood flow actually peaks when you first start driving and then how it tapers off over the time of your driving and then how your blood flow responds when you've got some kind of critical event. So that's what you're seeing in his hand. And of course, at 2.5 minutes, I mean 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 50 minutes, what do you see when he just hit the moose? What's in his hand? Cell phone. Cell phone, of course, right? So the problem with this research so far, I mean, this is a massive machine learning data set for those of you who, I'm looking for more collaborators in case you want to help me on this because it's such a big data set. We can't find any signal, right, that we can rely on so far, and that's going to be key to the driverless car. The driverless car needs to know the intent/cognitive state of the human to know whether or not you can even have a chance of responding under an extreme condition. The human brain has in it a half-second neuromuscular lag. You can't beat it. That's physics, right? The time that you see an event and then you can press on the brake, you've got to assume that a half second is the best you're going to be able to do under these conditions. And if a response is required in anything less than that, then you're going to have a problem, which in these cases where the sensors are degraded, it's going to be a problem. So in fact, I think that urban driving is going to be much more easily automated than this cross-country driving, and how we're going to do this to ensure that nothing bad happens in those long stretches of the road. And certainly up here, that's paramount in this part of the country. We still got problems. Now, the flying car. I love the flying car. You can actually buy one now. You can buy this flying car, or a version of this flying car, for $300,000 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. What? That's not, who doesn't have $300,000 land? The caveat is you also need to be a sport pilot. Of course, you don't have to have any driver testing to do this because we assume that you know what to do. But yes, you can. It's Terrafugia is a company in Cambridge, Massachusetts. You have to drive to an airport, and then the wings come out, and then you fly, and then you land, and then the wings come back, and it's roadable. And it's completely legit right now. But you have to fly it yourself. And these are my former students, by the way. And I said, what are you thinking? You cannot have they're terrible drivers. They're going to be worse pilots. Like, I am sorry. I do not have faith that I don't want to fly with any of you out there, right? I'm a professor. I know how distracted my students are. I don't want them on the road. I definitely don't want them in the sky, right? So what they're going to have to do is turn this thing into a drone. And they know that. And they're working on it. And they aren't the only ones. Silicon Valley is working on several versions of a flying car because they're going to merge it with this, right? And then one day we will have this, right? So even though I say that, I'm a little negative about the future of the driverless car, it's only in the immediate term. The technologies are going to get there. We've got to improve those sensors by a couple of orders of magnitude to make sure that they can work under all conditions. But when those sensors improve and when the computation speed improves and we get you out from behind the wheel of both vehicles, we will be able to see this. And I think what's amazing about the time that there's actually no technology that has to be developed for a flying car. It's there. All the technology pieces are there. They just have to get better. They just have to get safer. And then we have to do their infrastructure. And oh my God, the FAA. The FAA wants you to register every toy drone you buy on Brookstone, for example, right now. Can you imagine what the regulatory nightmare is going to be trying to get your own flying car going? I suspect we will see the big advances in the next 20, 30 years, but I suspect they'll happen in places like Australia first. Okay, now, but there is this problem. We've been talking about the man-machine versus plus issue. The one thing I want to leave you with is these technologies, whether we're talking about transportation technologies or automated process control, wherever you're starting to see more automation, it really comes down to a shift in where the cognition needs to happen, right? So this is a robotic forklift in some plant somewhere. some warehouse somewhere. Robotic forklifts are a dime a dozen right now. I mean, if you're in any kind of warehousing business and you don't have a robotic forklift, you are way behind the times, right? But but yet even these need supervision. And I'll tell you what, you want to know what the best business is to start for you entrepreneurials? Robot maintenance. Because these things break all the time and they don't have enough, companies like beer warehousers do not have enough people on staff to fix them when they break, so they have to rely on the developers of the robot. They don't have enough people to fix them when they break, and so it's been my prediction for a long time that robot maintenance is the next big thing. But you still have to have humans supervise them, because not only because they're breaking all the time, but because you've got to make sure that the tasks are being done. So we're going to make the leap from that to this. I mean, this is the future, and it's funny because I've heard all about the light rail debate here in Minneapolis and things are going on, but these are robotic trucks that are coming, right? They are on the horizon. It's a long horizon, but we've got robotic trucks that are going to be doing deliveries across the country. I mean, in the future, that will be the state of the art. But these things don't exist by themselves. They have to have supervision. They have to have at least a few humans watching them, making sure to intervene when there are contingencies and there are problems, and they break, and they will be. And so what has happened is we've actually taken the human who used to drive the forklift, which, anybody here been in a manufacturing facility? I used to work in a manufacturing facility. There is nothing good about a bunch of XY chromosomes in the manufacturing facility at 2 a.m. with a bunch of forklifts. Am I not right? Oh my God. The accident reports, I mean, I was the investigator for all these accidents. Like, you were playing chicken with forklifts at 2 a.m.? Like, who does that, right? Okay, so you've taken that person out of that job. And then we took these people out of this job of, I mean, it's just a higher degree of skill, maybe rule-based reasoning. So we've been replacing the people in these and all the other vehicles that we've been talking about. But where does that put, does that replace, does that get rid of them? I mean, this is actually one of the myths of automated technology, that we get rid of jobs. No, we don't. The jobs just shift. And that's what the job turns into. So this is an actual control station for somebody working in one of those automated mines. And I can promise you, this person is not being able to digest in any reasonable fashion the information coming from all of these displays. And how this happens is they get a new capability and they just slap on a new display. And by the way, I could take you to, I go to these manufacturing types of process control rooms all over the world for all kinds of industries, and they all look the same. Way too many displays, way too much information. It's like Ted Turner has come in and colorized these displays for no reason, and we're expecting this one person to be able to manage effectively all these systems, right? With no thought, we spend no money to help develop this workstation, we spend all the money in the technology. And this is not going to be a functional, scalable, operational architecture for the future. If you do not start thinking, how am I going to build a network of robotic forklifts, a network of robotic trucks, if I don't start thinking about how the human is going to supervise this, then I promise you we're going to have a lot more accidents than we do now. Okay, last slide. Let's talk about the future. This is an entirely new space of human-computer interaction. So prior to lunch, we were talking about what makes this time period different than, let's say, moving from the horseless carriage to the Model T Ford. That is because we are actually, we're moving people up that scale. We are going from the skill-based reasoning. We were just replacing one skill-based task technology with another, replacing the horses with the cars. We are now pushing people up into the knowledge and expert-based reasoning. We're forcing them to go up. That means we need smarter people. That means we need more tech people. That means we need people who understand what it means to be working under uncertainty. And it was a Nobel Prize-winning paper 20-something years ago. People do not reason well under uncertainty, okay? That's kind of a conundrum. People don't reason well statistically, but we needed them to reason statistically. So how's that going to work? Now, I already talked about the implementing technology solutions without human systems engineering. If you don't understand that you're moving people up the skill-based, that SRKE taxonomy, and you don't plan for that, you're going to have accidents. This is also another problem, these two graphs here. So this is the aerospace industry. This is a snapshot of This is the average annual growth rate for these companies, and this is in 2012, which is when we have the most complete data set of their R&D intensity. And this means the number of patents that they're filing, the number of innovations that at least they're publicly saying that they have. And what you're seeing is what you want is a big fat circle up and to the right? Because you want lots of R&D intensity and lots of annual average growth rate. So this is the aerospace industry. It could not be more right. Boeing, negative, right? Little R&D intensity and negative average annual growth rate. They're not doing good. Lockheed Martin is even worse in terms of their R&D intensity. The only company, the company that looks really healthy here is UTC Aerospace, and I work a lot with them, and I actually think that that's true. They are trying to move the ball forward. They actually have a dedicated research program that looks at how we're going to move all these autonomous technologies into. They've got GE engines, they've got elevators, they had Sikorsky, and then what's interesting, if anybody who's tracking this, the helicopter company, they just sold Sikorsky to who? Wonk, wonk, wonk. So that we're not going to see any progress in that division. Okay, but that's the aerospace industry. Let's look at the IT industry. First thing that should jump out at you is like, oh, they're making a lot more money. They're growing a lot faster, right? And look at these R&D intensity scale down here. I mean, this scale here fits like on this half of the scale here. And who's out in front? Google and Intel, right? And the yellow is US firms and the green is non-US firms. Microsoft way down here in terms of, and I think that's reflective too. But what does this mean? Why am I pointing this out? What this means is the R&D for autonomous systems is all happening in the IT sector, not in the transportation sectors. Why does that matter? Because all transportation vehicles are now going to be heavily leveraging software. The hardware has been pretty well defined, and we're still going to be making some improvements, but the big leap in innovation in transportation industries, in aviation, in automobiles, it's all going to happen because of the software development. And it's not happening inside those industries. It's happening in a different industry. Not that that's good or bad, but we cannot keep enough people in these fields. I mean, we need more and more people to get into software. And one of the things that engineering schools are doing bad, I'm not saying Minnesota is bad at this, but they could get better, is understanding that engineers need to have a software background, at least a little bit, to understand what the playing field looks like. So engineering programs need to step up their game. They need to have more software education. They need to have more interdisciplinary education across these systems, because these systems are not going to be standalone mechanical systems. They aren't now, and they definitely will not be in the future. So that gets at developing a qualified workforce. We are seriously in trouble. The universities, it's our fault. We need to do a better job, and we need to revamp our engineering education. But it's not just even engineering education. You've got to stand up. You've got to raise the tech level, I think, across all majors to actually compete in this world where software is really driving it. And I talked about the skill profiles for operators and maintenance personnel. Every single one of us has got to get up on that curve. We all got to get to the knowledge and expert-based reasoning. That's where we do best. That's where, when automation, when computers can get up in there, we'll be in the matrix, right? Because when a computer can do expert-based reasoning, there's really not going to be any need for us anymore, but we're so far away from that. I'm not saying it won't ever happen, but we're pretty far away from that. But we don't even understand how to get there. We don't even understand what that means. If the Walmart trucking industry of the future means that I need to have highly educated people, they're not there yet. And they have no plan to be there. They don't even know that they need that. I sat down last week with Pepsi executives, and they were like, oh, yeah, I guess we didn't even know. What are we going to do about that? Like, how are we going to start a training program to, that's right, we've got all this automation coming, but we have no idea that we're even going down that path. So with that, I'll take some questions.
So we'll open it up for questions.
I think you're going to have the microphone brought to you.
As you pointed out on your learning curve, so I'll simplify it and call it that, as we get up into knowledge and expertise, we have the biggest challenges to autonomy. You pointed out like in the aerospace industry and flying cars and the like, we have an opportunity to control the environment with more rules. Do you think there's going to be a trade-off, especially in this country where we're so rules-driven and legislative initiatives and litigation, where people are going to move toward controlling the environment through rulemaking rather than try to move into an expert system solution?
So I think that's a great question because it kind of speaks to the ambiguous nature of rulemaking. So there would be, I'd say rulemaking is going to fall into two camps. The rules that we dictate from the environment perspective and the rule-based reasoning that happens at an agent's perspective. And by agent or an entity, I mean either the human or a machine, right? So the answer is both of those have to be addressed. So as we start to increase autonomy in these systems, we've got to improve the rule-based reasoning for all the autonomous systems. But that means that we need to have the external organizational rule-based body, legislatures, for example, regulatory agencies. They've got to have an understanding of these systems. And if you think I'm critical against universities, I'm probably in Washington, D.C. once a week to remind the United States government that they have no expertise in any regulatory body at all to handle autonomous systems. I was just briefing the Chief of Naval Operations. I said, you have 2 people in your whole organization that can even spell autonomous system correctly, much less understand how to test and evaluate this. And this is actually where I think the biggest, when people say, what am I worried about? I'm not worried that people are going to start stealing drones and doing anthrax from drones. My biggest worry is that the United States government, whether we're talking about NHTSA, FAA, DOD, FRA, just, 3-letter agency, NASA goes in there too, by the way, that they don't have enough expertise in-house to assess whether or not the autonomous systems that they're developing or that they're subcontracting out to be developed can perform in reasonable ways. And that's because it's a stochastic world. Autonomous systems mean reasoning under uncertainty. And engineers are trained really well. I'm sure I could go to any classroom right now in Minnesota, and where engineers are being trained to understand deterministic systems that operate by these clear rules. What autonomous systems are systems that reason probabilistically. And we have no idea. There is no formal testing program at all anywhere in the United States government that gives a clear threshold for how do we know an autonomous system that's reasoning under uncertainty that never, ever, ever performs the same way twice. How do we know that that's a good system? So it's kind of an ambiguous answer to your question.
Anyone else?
I was about to say, I'm not that scary.
One here and one here.
And they're not that shy normally.
I'm thinking about places where autonomous vehicles could really, I think there's a lot of places where they could advance the human condition, but I'm thinking about climate change and wildfires in California that ran out of control, and we have flooding, and we have these incidents that create very hostile environments for humans to get to help other human beings. And I'm wondering if anybody's studying the use of autonomous vehicles in really extreme situations like forest fires and flooding.
Absolutely. So there's a big program, not surprisingly, in California right now trying to replace the airborne firefighting assets with drones. And this is one of those places that makes perfect sense. Like the mining community is the best one to because of the hostile forest fighting from the firefighting from the air is the other one. There are many, many accidents because when those planes take off, they are so heavily laden with water, they are very close to their stall threshold when they take off. So this is actually another environment where machines, computers do a much, much better job. And so the funny thing is we know how to do it. The real problem in the forest, the firefighting from airplanes are that the planes are old. And they don't have they're all analog. And so they don't have the fly-by-wire capability that new planes have. And in fact, R2A2, that crazy robotics, that would be the kind of thing that you could stick into an old airplane and actually maybe have it flown by that, since it's actually going to have little mechanical arms. And so that's one of the derivative technologies. So people are thinking about it. In terms of the flooding, people, the unmanned underwater vehicle, the unmanned surface water vehicle communities, they are equally doing research, but I think most people are focused for flooding and hurricanes on the after-event response and maybe how to get in. Drones are really good to do airborne surveillance, and have sent in various robotic underwater or surface vehicles to try to maybe get supplies in. And so you would be, there's been an explosion of roboticists for good and conservationdrones.org. And so the good news is that now the technology, which is so much more accessible than it used to be, people are coming out of the woodwork to do good things.
What kind of work is being done in collecting data on this industry? Like how many driverless or autonomous vehicles are out there? How far are they traveling? And what kind of information are we going to be able to need? Are we going to need to be able to analyze what's going on over the years?
I'm not sure there's a repository that I could point you to right now. NHTSA is tracking this because they have to give the approvals, as do state legislatures, for driverless car operations. I don't know enough about Minnesota to know where you fall out on that. I haven't heard your name pop up, so I don't know whether your legislature has addressed whether or not they can be tested on your roads, but certainly they can in California, Nevada, I think Florida. So it is a state-by-state activity. NHTSA probably is not going to weigh in until it becomes more of a federal issue. And then at that, I mean, they're not going to give permission necessarily. They're just going to start talking about safety criteria that these vehicles need to meet, but they're not even close to even understanding what that is right now. So, there's not really any one agency that's tracking it. You can't do a Freedom of Information Act request on Google, for example, and it's a hotly competitive environment. I'll tell you, Google had a mini heart attack when Uber stole all those people from Carnegie Mellon because the game's on. Big rate. You talk about a good Vikings versus who are the Vikings? Who's your number one competitor?
Packers.
Packers. It's a Vikings-Packers world out there in the driverless car domain, which is interesting to me because, and it was when Walmart threw their hat in the ring, a double game on, right? Because now we're starting to see really big companies, Amazon, Google, Uber, Walmart. That is going to drive technology development like crazy. Even if you're, just remotely related to robotics, you can get a job now at any of those companies for a ridiculous salary, which is why the U.S. government cannot find any because they're not going to work for pennies when they can make big money with these private corporations. And so it's definitely going to be something to watch. I suspect there'll be some advocacy groups coming out, EPIC, which is the privacy. But the other thing you don't realize about driverless cars they are an amazing violation of your privacy in so many ways, right? It's funny to me to hear people push back about drones when in fact driverless cars are filming everything around the car at all times with various cameras, and they're filming inside the car too. And what's going to happen when insurance companies get a hold of all the data, not just the telemetry data that's coming off your card, but you're going to your full facial expression when you cause that crash, right? And then what's going to happen then? So I think you're going to see, as these technologies become more real time in terms of a public release, you'll start to see more advocacy come out.
Speaking of Walmart, what impact is this going to have on other industries? For example, the retail industry is now thinking about a future where they won't have bricks and mortar stores so much as goods moving around the city on autonomous vehicles to be delivered to your house as soon as you buy online, faster than you could drive to the store, pick it up, and come home. So do you see this technology transforming other industries other than transportation?
Yes, but in different ways. For example, the journalism field is being, when you talked about the automation of newspaper articles. And, I tell people, just think about that skills, rules, knowledge, expertise framework. The answer is, if you can automate those skills, whatever they are, and this is actually the Wall Street, by the way, did you know that one of the fastest dying jobs are brokers, right, on Wall Street? Why? Because the trading is all being done automatically now. The bulk of trading in the world happens because of computers, with computers executing what they'll say, knowledge-based reasoning, but they're really just rule-based reasoning on a massive scale, right? So what's interesting about this environment is it's not just the blue-collar jobs that are at stake. In fact, we could argue that any blue-collar job that requires dexterity in your fingers, we are not automating maids anytime soon. We are not automating anything that requires any dexterity of your hand. But if you're a pilot, which is definitely an upper white-collar job, if you're a stockbroker trader, so when you start thinking about what's kind of cool from an academic perspective is this is the ultimate in disruption, right? We are seeing jobs disrupted, and until I came up with my framework, you couldn't predict whether no, I'm just but I think what's powerful about this framework is I think it really helps people understand. Yeah, if you can't get the skills automated, that's why the robotic maid isn't coming, because we can't automate those skills yet. Is there another?
Yes, there is over there.
So you were talking about the drones and what a boring job that is for the pilot and the sensory operator. So now they have those two monitoring planes in the double digits. So I'm wondering if that's part of by design. They're giving them more drones to monitor just to alleviate that boredom. And if that model sort of stands, are there ways for us to apply that to other types of automated monitoring that's very boring and just give the operators slightly additional tasks just to keep them engaged?
Yeah, so that's a very common mitigation technique. When we got somebody monitoring any highly automated process, drones, for example, nuclear power plants, they probably surpass drones in terms of problems with boredom on the job. And so giving them something else to do is one mitigation that we're working on. So one of the things that we're looking at in the driverless car industry, for example, it's probably better to have them watching a movie than sleeping, for example, right? So can we actually, there are manufacturers out there who are working on a device that would be mounted in a certain place on your car that allows you to watch movies while your driverless car is doing its job, hoping that at least keeping your vision in the forward field will help you interact quicker if you need to. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on across a number of industries.
Okay, last question.
A little bit of a follow-up question. Actually, things you touched on, but the Air Force, among other DoD agencies, is having a hard time getting drone pilots. You're probably familiar with all this, and they're actually looking to give their, as the Air Force calls them, RPA pilots, multiple drones or RPAs to fly in more tactical areas. And you're probably familiar with this saying, but flying is 99% boredom, 1% terror. And I'm wondering how the pilots flying multiple, Reapers or Predators, and they get into that terror zone, and maybe they have one or two that are in a tactical situation, how they're going to fly two of those, and with all the issues that have come up, in war zones, but also even the military is having a hard time keeping their drones in the air. They just had one crash in Kuwait the other day, and these are armed. So, what's the reliability factor of trying to keep, the technology's there, and you touched on maintenance, but the Air Force, the military does a hell of a job keeping very old planes in the air. And how is this all going to go forward as far as reliability, shortage of pilots, especially in the military?
So the military is struggling to retain its drone operators because they hate it so much for a couple reasons. And number one, it can be really boring. But the people they're having a hard time retaining are the people who used to be fighter pilots like me, and then they force them to go do the drone job. And this is a really bad idea. That would be like taking me and turning me into a librarian. That's just not going to happen, right? And I would go crazy in that environment. And so this goes back to understanding the new skill sets. So the Air Force is having the hardest time doing this because they're the ones who are most emotionally invested in the pilot culture and what we call the white scarf mentality, of which I am part of that club too. But one of the things that they are starting to realize, and they do have programs in place, is, maybe the video gamer is the person that we want, or even better, the air traffic controller. It turns out that an air traffic control skill set is more closely aligned with the actual skill set of a drone operator than a pilot. You don't want that. It's called negative transfer of training. Pilots, we're bad. We take in a whole bad set of skills. They're not bad, but they just don't match, right? My skill set as a pilot is not the same skill set that I need to be able to command multiple vehicles at one time. The other solution that the military is getting better at, and I'll tell you who's going to make the biggest leaps in progress, is going to be Google, Amazon, everybody with the low altitude drone control for delivery. And that is having a decentralized system where, let's just say I am a drone operator and I've got 4 under my control, and then there's a problem with one, or I've got a firefight going on with one and it takes all my attention. Then you can actually just assign, the drones can actually just tell somebody else, look, I need attention and this guy can't give it to me, and so I have a distributed network that I can go out and still get the attention that I need, kind of like the call center mentality, right? And so, but this is what's going to happen with the drone delivery, which is coming. I think a lot of people find that hard to believe. It's coming. It is never going to take over Amazon's primary business, but it will be, particularly in some urban markets, New York, probably Atlanta, San Francisco, maybe DC, maybe not. DC is kind of a tricky one because that's the last thing the Secret Service wants is a bunch of drones flying around. Maybe just not inner DC. These are going to have to be decentralized networks with lots of automation that allow workload to shift across a network of operators. So thank you so much for having me. It's been great being here. I really appreciate it.
Well, Missy, your career pathway has certainly been an interesting one, but I personally can say how glad I am you landed in academia, because aren't we the richer for it? That's just wonderful. Truly one of my favorite luncheons we've ever done. So very, very stimulating and enjoyable. Students, remember when we asked how many? I saw lots of hands in the air. Did you hear her message? You should go out and get some software exposure and experience and background. And for those of you who are parents of future workforce folks, make sure they're paying attention to that message as well. Thanks all for coming today. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you at another CTS event soon.